Red Lily, a story from Richard Hampton's Gallery of Tragedies. Narrated by Coyle. Father always loved my lilies. They reminded him of Mother. He hung one of his many commissions up in the conservatory. I'd often come home late at night to find him sitting with his reading glasses on, a James Patterson in his hands, as he sat under my lily. He dotted the house with them. Every wall, every nook, every windowsill and countertop. Everywhere. It was jarring to guests when they visited. Father and I shrugged off their questions and comments. We'd tell them how much Mother liked lilies and how I often painted them for her. And we'd leave it at that. I disagreed with Father. I didn't like my lilies, and other than reminding him of Mother, I couldn't imagine why those were his favorite. Personally, it was my landscapes that brought me the most pride. This year, I was going for more of a Mediterranean vibe. The palm trees, the cobblestone, and the amazing vistas that peeked out into that bright blue sea. Those were the images I most wanted to recreate in art. They were more challenging than Africa by far, and when I went through my Asian landscapes phase, only the uniqueness of the Japanese cherry blossoms and Chinese architecture were as challenging as the Mediterranean. Everything else was easy. Just as easy as those damn lilies. But it made Father happy, so I did it. 1 lily a week was enough to suffice for him. Tears would trickle down to the corners of his beaming smile as he accepted them. He never sobbed, he never broke down, but I could tell it made him so happy. That was what made them all worth it to me. It had been so long since I'd seen that smile. Right after Mother, he forced himself to work. It seemed abrupt, but it got his mind to focus on something other than her, so I encouraged it. His life before had been all about her. Now, it was about me. Moira needs this. Moira wants this. Moira could use this. Moira. He milled around the house like a lost hermit, collecting and scavenging for anything I might need to succeed in my art. The attic was his masterpiece, the fruition of his months of work in the aftermath of Mother. Somehow, he had gotten into contact with Professor Lewis at the RCA, who coordinated with his team to order a massive blank white canvas to be shipped to the house. It was so large, Father had to get the neighbors to help carry it in and mount it on the entire length of the attic wall. He then ordered gallons upon gallons of paint, dozens of brushes, a new apron, multiple palettes, and everything else a freshman art student at RCA would ever need. All for me. I let him do it. Selfishly because I wanted all that stuff, and unselfishly because I knew it made him feel better. Hell, maybe in some ways it made me feel better too. Professor Lewis called the first couple of weeks to check in on me, but after the 10th voicemail, I think he got the memo. "Hi, Moira. This is Professor Lewis from the Royal College of Art. Please give me a call back when you get a chance. I want to check and see how you are doing and talk about next steps regarding this semester. My international number is 020-7946-0747. Thanks." Hi, Moira. This is Professor Damian Lewis calling again from the Royal College of Art. I just wanted to see if you could chat regarding the upcoming semester a month from now. Of course, due to these unique circumstances, please don't feel under any pressure to commit to anything at the moment. All this call will be is a chat to see where your head's at. Give me a call back at 020-7946-0747 at your convenience. Thanks, Moira. Hi, Moira. This is Professor Lewis calling again from RCA. Please give me a call back when you get a chance. Moira, this is Professor Lewis from RCA. I do apologize for calling as often as I have. I completely understand this might not be the time, and I fully intend on keeping our conversation as brief as possible. With the semester only a week away or so, I just want to chat for 15 minutes to talk logistics with you and see where your head is at. Please don't feel pressured to commit. This is only a conversation. Thank you. Hi, Moira. This is Professor Lewis from the Royal College of Art. I was able to make contact with your father, Joseph, and he informed me that you will need some time before committing to another semester. I completely understand, and I want you to know you and your father are in our thoughts and prayers. Please reach out as soon as you feel able, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks. I wasn't going back. That I was sure of. Father was adamant I do. He had so many ongoing agreements and promises to Chancellor Davies, I couldn't keep them straight. But I was certain he had promised a showing of my work to the German Bundestag when their legislative session was over and they visited in the fall. Out of all of Europe, the Germans in particular took the greatest interest in my work. Father had to talk Chancellor Davies off a ledge when he heard that the Berlin University of the Arts had made an offer to me. It took an in-person visit to the house, which Father and I rarely allowed anymore, to calm Chancellor Davies down. The truth is, I didn't need school. RCA knew it. Berlin knew it. Father knew it. My work was already touring the continents. My Africa landscapes were in Glasgow this weekend, and my Norway landscapes were in South Africa. My self-portraits were over in North America, and my abstracts were in Asia. There was nothing Professor Lewis could teach me that I didn't already instinctively know. The only reason I was at RCA anyway was because of the money they paid for me to be there. An invisible student. A name to put on their website. Hell, I was on the website, wasn't I? Moira Petrovic, famed art prodigy since the age of 8, currently attends the Royal Academy of Art virtually from her home in Sweden. Under the tutelage of Professor Damian Lewis, Moira specializes in landscapes, abstracts, and self-portraits that have dazzled the professional art world. Her latest work has generated £76,000 and has been heralded by The Observer as some of the most important and impactful artwork from the new generation of artists. I got a kick out of picturing just how much hair Chancellor Davies had pulled out of his already balding head every time he looked at the attending virtually part of the blurb. They wanted me back so badly. And it did make me laugh to picture their poor admin stooges getting shouted at by Davies and Lewis, demanding the admins find a way to get me back on campus. But like I said, they needed me. I didn't need them. All I needed was a paintbrush, a canvas, and a palette. All of which Father and the Royal College of Art had generously provided. How many lilies do you think you could fit on there? I jumped. I had been so deep in thought, I forgot the attic door was open. Father stood at the doorway, a sweet smile on his tanned face. The puffiness of his cheeks as well as the smudges of his glasses betraying the crying his smile was surely trying to hide. I'm sure I could do 500. I smiled. 500, he beamed. I would love that, sweetie, but no. No, you are on a quest for the Mediterranean. The lilies will have to wait. He turned to leave, and I called out to him. Yes, honey. Thanks for all of this. This was really nice of you to put together for me. Of course, sweetie. It's what your mother would have wanted. I'm happy to see you using it already. He gave one last goofy smile only a father could give and headed back downstairs. I turned to the canvas. The sheer size of it took up the entire length of the room from wall to wall. Before we hung it, we made sure to line the floors with some canvas drop cloth, inadvertently creating a tripping hazard depending on what part of the cloth started bunching up. This drop cloth had been around for so long now, the greens of Asia, the yellows and browns of Africa, the blacks of skies over South America, and all the other colors from paintings gone by were so muddled and mixed, the cloth was pretty much dark brown now. Paint flaked and flicked off the cloth the moment you stepped on it. But I was unworried about making a mess. Father had given me express permission to do whatever I wanted with the room, even if that meant I'd make a mess. And that was my studio. A canvas, a drop cloth, a tiny attic, a stool to sit on, and a stack of paint buckets, a brush, a couple palettes. It was quiet, peaceful, a perfect place for painting the Mediterranean. I needed a lot of blues, a lot of whites, and a lot of green for all the trees. So, what did I need first? A figure, probably. Some focal point for the person viewing the art to see. I thought about that for a while. I liked to Google pictures of the landscapes I wanted to paint to get inspiration for the types of settings that were present. For my Africa landscapes, I had fewer people, as the focal points more often than not were animals. Rhinos, silhouettes of tigers or giraffes, and wild zebras dotted those paintings. The Mediterranean was definitely more people-focused. I felt like I should maybe do a young family vacationing or an elderly couple who had just arrived from a coastal cruise, or a new husband and wife celebrating their honeymoon right in front of that beautiful blue sea. Or a woman, a single, solitary woman, staring out into the sea with her hand lightly pressed on the windowsill of her Sorrento suite. Looking away from the viewer, of course. Her face should be obscured. It gave mystery to the woman. She could be anyone. A young girl finding her place in the world. An aspiring actress on a trip to the area, now love-struck over a man she'd met. Or a mother. I paused my sketch on the canvas. No, I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. The idea had been in my head for a while now, but I kept pushing it away. It would be too much for Father to see. I had never painted Mother before, even though I knew deep down he wanted to see her again. I had to protect him from that. It would be too painful. I looked over at the only picture we still had of her in the house. It hung on the wall at the far end of the attic next to the empty easel, still unmoved from that day. She had just finished a piece of her own. Father forbade me to see what she painted that day. That was the first thing he took from the attic. I was, of course, a wreck that day, and I didn't think anything of it at first. I thought maybe it was just too much of a bad memory for Father, and he had thrown the picture out in despair. But curiosity always followed me. Father forbade me from going into the attic for weeks after. I knew he kept the painting locked away in his bedroom. I knew the code, so one day I slipped in while he was away and looked at what she made. It was unlike anything I had ever seen her do. She was known for her abstract paintings. Chancellor Davies knew her from back when she herself attended RCA. Some of her abstracts were still hanging on the walls. If even the most devout of RCA's faculty had seen Mother's final painting, they would not have applauded. They would have screamed. She didn't do an abstract. She did a self-portrait. It took me a while to fully comprehend what was happening in the picture. My mother drew and painted herself, but only her waist and legs were visible. Her art stool was in the painting, overturned, and on its side as she dangled from the ceiling. A small, innocent, black-haired preteen, who was me, stood next to the stool, my foot still outstretched from when I kicked it. In my mother's final painting, I had helped her in her suicide. So no, maybe I shouldn't paint my mother in the Mediterranean. Father wouldn't be able to handle it. I turned my attention away from the picture across the attic of my mother and focused back on the canvas. Even as I looked away, that picture across the room still followed me. She was so beautiful then, so happy. I think Father took it with the first camera the two of them owned. Her beautiful raven black hair fell to her shoulders, framing her thin, regal face on either side. Her eyes were vibrant blue, absolutely the most striking part of that photograph. Her red smile was so sincere, a smile long dead in those final years. I couldn't get her out of my head. My first attempt to get past my mother was the honeymooning couple. I sketched a chiseled, buff-looking frat finance bro and his delicate, Instagram-worthy sorority wife, sitting at the windowsill of their suite, looking out at the water. I worked on them for a good 2 hours, sketching and erasing and sketching and erasing as I tried to get them in the right pose. She had to look regal, like she owned the place, like she was the one in charge of her relationship and not the large Chad next to her. I thought of Ashley. I remember the way she carried herself in high school. Just one look at her and you knew all you needed to know. She was rich, she was powerful. She had 2 parents who loved her, an older brother who protected her, and a younger sister who adored her. She got perfect scores on her tests, she was admired by the faculty and staff, and every star member of the football team wanted to be her #1 draft pick. I was so envious of all that. Even now, it all came so easy to her. After an hour, I had her fully sketched out on the canvas, the envy of all us girls, the person we wanted to be. I used lighter colors on her and framed her new groom as a protector alongside her, towering and imposing. They looked so peaceful and serene. I stared at the sketch for several minutes and felt a rush of embarrassment as I realized how much jealousy I was feeling inside just looking at it. How stupid. A simple sketch on a canvas could make me feel the same type of feelings one of Ashley's impeccably captured Instagram posts could. I guess I should feel pride in how strong a reaction a simple sketch of mine was already creating. But I couldn't help but push the pride aside and sit, left with nothing but envy. It could be worse. If I gave Chad even more muscles, or if I added several small, adorable toddlers to the picture, or even if I painted in suitcases full of money and a Tesla parked in the background. I still wouldn't be avoiding the #1 thing Ashley had over me. Her and her mother. They were inseparable. Her mother was practically her twin, 20 years older and with nothing distinguishing her age other than slight smile lines. I'm sure they were so close because her mother had been an exact copy of her when she was in high school. Mrs. Phelps married the high school quarterback, who traded in his jersey for dental scrubs and many, many cars. I remember when Mr. Phelps rented out the entire movie theater in 4th grade for our class for the premiere of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. At that age, I had no idea the kind of flex that was for the Phelps family. An in-your-face display of wealth and prestige that guaranteed Ashley Phelps an unlimited supply of friends for the next 10-plus years. Ashley thrived, and her mother was right there alongside her through all of it. So yeah, maybe I would paint her in the picture. It made sense in context. If Ashley did end up getting married and went for a honeymoon in the Mediterranean, I'm sure her mother would have ended up going too. Sure, she wouldn't be in the same room as her darling daughter and hunk of a husband, but she'd be in the room next door. She'd flitter around the coastline, planning excursions for her daughter and buying designer clothes from apparel stores geared for the rich American tourists that visited the Mediterranean oasis. And unlike most other children, who'd prefer privacy and alone time with their newly betrothed, Ashley wouldn't mind one bit. She'd actually insist her mother come along. So I started sketching Mrs. Phelps off to the side of the young couple. I placed her on the far left side of the canvas. Her face was turned toward them, a loving smile on it. Once I finished sketching her, the pre-work was done. I had the scene just how I wanted it, and I could begin painting. I started with the interior of the room. I liked to leave the figures in the painting to the very last. They were the hardest part of any painting because they were where the viewer's eyes would focus. The subjects of the painting had to be perfect, and I liked to worry about them at the end. So I worked on painting the red of the carpet, the tan yellow of the windowsill, the shadows of the three figures, which had to be faint yet still present. I spent a good hour or so touching up a difficult vase and flowers that I had situated just to the left of Ashley. I didn't even realize I was painting a lily until I was adding in the streaks of yellow and green paint that rose from the center of the flower, enveloped by the white tips around it. Father would smile. Yet another lily had found its way into one of my paintings. "Moira!" Something was wrong. I couldn't figure it out, but Mrs. Phelps' smile seemed off, almost a frown. She was looking right at Ashley, which would obviously bring a smile to her face. Not just a smile, either. She'd be beaming. But she wasn't. That trademark wealthy, holier-than-thou smile was a frown, and I couldn't figure out why. "Moira, you coming down?" And Chad wasn't working out either. The colors looked off. He didn't look like he belonged in the picture anymore. Mrs. Phelps and Ashley looked fine. They looked perfect in the scene, but while they looked like twins, delicate and regal, he looked stocky, uncomfortable, and out of place. Maybe this scene just wasn't meant for him. Maybe this was a mother and daughter scene only. I decided to paint over him. "Moira, dinner is getting cold." Father entered the attic right as I threw my brush down in frustration. "Moira?" He was standing in the threshold of the attic doorway, a plate of spaghetti and meatballs in his hands. His eyes darted back and forth from me to the picture as he pieced the scene together. "Hi, Father. What's this? Is this you and Mom?" "What?" I exclaimed, throwing my hands up in embarrassment in front of the canvas, as if Father had just walked in on me changing. No, it's not done yet. I'm still working out the kinks, that's all." "She looks just like when I first met her," Father said, staring wistfully at the painting. "Well, it's not her, so who is she then? Her twin?" "It's supposed to be... Never mind." "No, sweetie, it's okay. You can tell me. I know you're still working on it. It'll look like whoever you want it to look like. It's based off of... Uh, do you remember Ashley? Ashley? Yeah, Ashley Phelps from grade school and high school. Oh, yeah, I remember her. She was the rich one, right? Her dad was your dentist when you had all those cavities. Father laughed. Yeah, well, I wanted to paint a honeymoon scene, and I based the couple off of Ashley because I'm sure she has a husband by now, and I'm sure they would be the type of people that could afford a honeymoon in Croatia or Greece. She just seemed like she'd fit, and then her mother was always with her, so I figured I'd throw her into the mix too. But honey, Father started, still perplexed by the picture as he walked toward it. Didn't Ashley have blonde hair? This girl's hair is your color, black. I felt a rush of anger take over me before I realized he was right. I painted her hair black, just like mine. Why did I do that? And Mrs. Phelps had blonde hair too, Father said. But this woman's hair is black. What the hell? I didn't realize, I guess. I was just really focused and I don't know, I stammered. Well, you'll figure it out, honey. I see you squeezed a lily in there too. Seems like your mother is trying to get into this picture any way she can, Father laughed. He handed me the plate of spaghetti and meatballs and said something about the food getting cold and me needing to do better about eating regularly or something that I barely took in. He went back downstairs, leaving me standing dumbfounded in the attic as I stared at the perplexing picture in front of me. It took me a while, but I figured it out. I had started on the figures too early. I wasn't done with the background and foreground yet. I probably was just so into my own thoughts at this point that I mixed up colors. That would be easy to fix. Mrs. Phelps' hair would be blonde again, and so would Ashley's. Easy fix. So I pushed the thoughts aside and continued my work on the rest of the scene. I wanted the room to look like the kind of room Ashley and her mother would really stay in. So I spent a bit of time on my phone Googling the various suites the Mediterranean vistas in Croatia, Greece, and Italy had to offer. The most common things I noticed were the 4-poster beds and the white tile. Nearly all of the suites had this style. So under the red carpet, I painted white tile and added the pillars of the 4-poster bed to the foreground, so the point of view looked like the person seeing the painting would be sitting on the bed, observing this loving mother and daughter on their vacation. I'm sure any vacations the real Mrs. Phelps and Ashley were on were very loving. I'm sure there was no arguing, no fighting, no yelling. I couldn't help but feel another tinge of jealousy flare up inside me as I painted. I never went on a vacation with my mother, but it was probably for the best. She wouldn't be staring so sweetly at her daughter. She'd be staring resentfully. She'd never been vulnerable with me, not once. The only time I caught a hint of some sign of emotion other than focus, when she was painting, and sternness, anytime she talked to me, was when I found a printed out email lying on the downstairs printer. She'd left it there by mistake. I'll never forget the words of the email. Dear Miss Petrovic, thank you for meeting with me this past week. I enjoyed getting to know you better, and I feel like we really made a nice connection and real progress in this latest session. Per your request, I'm putting in writing the dosage I recommend you take for Lexapro. Take 1 10-milligram tablet once a day in the morning with food. Please stick to this dosage. Any excess use has been shown to increase instances of suicidal thoughts, trouble sleeping, changes in mood, and other undesirable side effects. Please give me a call at 4177-555-4367 if you have any questions. Sincerely, Dr. Hugo Larson. This was the first time I realized something was wrong with Mother. Like I said, she was always so stern and focused. I just assumed that was her default. I had no idea she was suffering from depression, much less depression serious enough to warrant a prescription for Lexapro. I knew she'd be defensive about it, so I didn't dare bring it up to her. So I went to Father. It was the middle of the week. He was cooking lunch, ham and cheese sandwiches, and Mother was in the attic, painting. She was on a tear that day. I think she'd been up there for at least 5 hours at the time I went to talk to Father. Coincidentally, this was the same day I had been accepted to RCA. "Father?" I asked. "Yes, my little prodigy?" I remember him saying, still getting a kick out of my acceptance. "I saw something on the printer. A letter from a doctor to Mother." The smile left Father's face. Oh, yes. I think she meant to take that upstairs, dear." "Is Mother okay?" "Yes, oh yeah, she's fine. She's just going through a bit of a hard time at the moment. Like we all do, but listen, Moira, it's nothing to worry about. Your mother is fine and she's taking care of herself." I Googled Lexapro. It's for clinical depression. I didn't even realize she had. Honey, like I said, your mother is taking care of it. You know how she is. She doesn't like to wear her heart on her sleeve. This is what makes her different from you. You got my emotional intelligence and you got her actual intelligence. "But why would she be depressed?" I asked. "At least tell me that. I mean, we have everything we could ever want. The house, the family. And I mean, I just got accepted to RCA. They're writing about me in the British papers and everything. My art is touring now. Shouldn't she be happy about that?" "Of course, Moira, of course," Father said, wrapping me in a reassuring embrace. "We are so thrilled for you, sweetie. You make us so proud. You make her so proud, too. She just has a different way of showing it. Who would have thought when we had you, you'd turn into an artist, just like your mom?" "She doesn't seem happy for me. She seems almost mad." "Moira, listen to me. Your mother is proud of you. She's just going through a little identity crisis at the moment. She loves art as much as you do, and I think she is just processing your own success at the moment. She gave up art to have you and raise you. She's just now getting back into it, and she's having a hard time with that. It's not easy coming back to that 15 years after a break. It's like writer's block, but she'll get through it. She's going to be fine, and she's so proud of you, Moira." Your mother is fine, and she's taking care of herself. Your mother is proud of you. She's going to be fine. The words from those days reverberated inside my head like balls in a pinball machine, hitting and ricocheting every which way. I shook my head and tried to focus back on the Mediterranean. Relitigating every past moment of what led up to Mother's final painting would do nothing good for me. I was not to blame in the situation. I knew that. I told myself that every night. So did Father. Mother was sick. She wasn't right in the head. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Mrs. Phelps was looking downright sinister now. Her hair was still black. Her frown had turned into a snarl, and her arm was outstretched toward her unaware darling, who was staring out at the sea. What was she doing? Why was she looking so cruel, so miserable, and so angry at her daughter? Why was her hair still black? Gone was the look of wealth, of prestige, of importance from the woman's face. It made me angry, frustrated. I felt like throwing down my palette in defeat right then and there. I couldn't recall any other time where I'd had so much trouble painting a figure. It was as if I were no longer in control of what was happening on the canvas, and I was just along for the ride. That's probably the only valuable thing I took away from 4 semesters at RCA. Now, Professor Lewis talked about how many artists, whether they be writers, actors, musicians, or painters, did not plan out what they were going to create. Rather than plot everything out, many artists were creating on a whim, seeing where the inspiration took them. He said to think of artists as sculptors with a massive slab of blank marble. They didn't know what they'd find when they'd start chipping away at it. They were hoping to find their inspiration as they worked. Or, another analogy he used a lot was that artists were excavators, prospectors, archaeologists with a shovel, just digging and digging and digging until they found their inspiration. I was not that. I was a planner. I thought all my work through before starting. But Professor Lewis' talk on inspiration was the only thing I could think of that could explain how my original painting of sweet young honeymooners on the Mediterranean coast was quickly becoming something very different. The mother was holding a knife now as she lunged. A sharp, long, pointed instrument now plunging downward toward the soft, tender neckline of the unassuming daughter. The lily sat on the windowsill to the left of the daughter, its leaves now straight and alert, as if it were screaming out in warning to its keeper. I kept painting. Even as the image got more and more disturbing, there was something driving this now, something subconscious that kept pushing me onward. I was the artist that Professor Lewis described, an artist sculpting and chipping away at the marble to find an elusive secret. Oh, how I humored myself. How I pretended I didn't know who the woman in my painting was. Why she and the girl had the same hair color. Why I removed the man from the picture. Why there was now a knife in her hand. This was the inverse of what my mother painted of me. That painting from hell. That painting that so clearly illustrated what happened to my mother. That painting that made it clear as day, and yet my father and I pretended not to see. We pushed it away as if it were a mirage, a delusion conjured up in my mother's final moments as a result of her dependence and overindulgence in the Lexapro. What would Father make of this new painting? Would he again wave it away? Pretend it wasn't there? Convince himself the child with a knife now buried in her throat wasn't his child? Maybe this would make it clear to him the pain I was really in. Maybe this would show him what her painting did to me. I remember how sweet and innocent my eyes looked in Mother's picture. The aw-shucks smile that would have given Shirley Temple a run for her money. That image in comparison to the hanging corpse that was my mother and the overturned stool I had clearly just kicked told the viewer everything they needed to know. She blamed me for everything that had happened to her. Her failure, her lack of ability in comparison to me, her mental health. Father wouldn't listen. To him, the lilies were a sign of affection for my mother. To me, they were a haunting reminder of what had happened. A lingering scar so seared into my memory, every painting of mine had to have one. He just couldn't see what they really were. So, I'd just have to show him. My mother now had the palette knife jammed deep into the side of my throat. I painted streaks of red coating the side of my neck, and dabbed a cloth on my shirt and shorts to show just how much damage my mother had done. My gaze into the ocean, which had been so serene only moments ago, was now angled downward to the windowsill as my body slumped. My mother's face was now twisted in a smile of rage, just as much as it was a smile of sick satisfaction. I dipped my brush into the red paint on my palette and dotted the space between Mother and I with the spray of blood. A spray so voluminous the pure white lily sitting on the windowsill was now dripping with hot blood. I stepped back from the painting and admired the work, my hands on my hips. I smiled, a smile similar to how my mother must have smiled that day in this very attic when she looked at her final piece. "Father?" I called downstairs, my gaze still on the painting. "Yes, dear," he yelled. "You should come up here. I just finished." "Finished already?" "Yep. I got some last-minute inspiration." "Okay, coming up now." I heard his steps as he made his way up the stairs. "How many lilies did you paint this time, dear?" Father laughed. "You promised me 500 this time." "I only did one this time," I said. "Only one?" "Only one," I replied. "Well, I can't wait to see it," Father said. "It's my best one yet." I smiled. Thank you so much for letting me share my story with you. If you want to hear more Hampton tales, please subscribe. My full collection, Flowers That Bleed, A Gallery of Tragedies, is available now on Amazon. Click the link in the description. It means the world to me to be able to share my stories with you. Thank you. This has been Red Lily, a story from Richard Hampton's Gallery of Tragedies. Narrated by Coyle.